Hey everybody, I'm Jonathan. I'm joined today by three of my friends and co-workers here at Masters Fantasy. To my right, Dynasty Owl, the Doc, Ryan Milletti, and John Beast. Today we're going to be talking about some Dynasty stashes, some free agent pickups, some guys that maybe you could go get really cheap on your Dynasty teams, store them now for the off season, and then next season, you have a really good asset on your team. I was just looking through some of last year's drafts. Some guys that came to mind that I seen that were getting drafted in rookie drafts: Rob Gronkowski, Hayden Hurst. I mean, guys that you could have just picked up, week 14, week 15 for nothing, and traded them away or used them to win a championship this year. We're going to start out with the Doc with his first Dynasty stash.
So my first stash that I have is kind of maybe a little deeper, but it's actually Quintez Cephus, and he's a receiver for the Lions, 5th round pick out of Wisconsin. And he's one of those guys that's not a super great athlete, on paper, nothing special. That's why he was a 5th round pick. But I feel like he's just one of those guys that produces whenever he plays and gets like a big uptick in opportunities. And my thinking behind this is Marvin Jones is 30. Kenny Goliday, a lot of uncertainty with the contract situation. Quintez Cephus could be seeing himself a lot of snaps next season, and you could get him for basically nothing right now. Go and pick him up, and at the very least, you have a guy that, could be getting into a regular rotation in Detroit. And another thing I like, too, is you think maybe they go offensive head coach after failing with a defensive-minded head coach. Maybe they have a little more high-powered offense. So that's why I like Cephus. I think it's a nice little pickup. Nice little stash.
Yeah, actually, I like his name, too. Pretty cool name. And I actually have Quintez Cephus on a few of my rosters. Early on in the season, there was a stat that stuck out to me. I think through the second or third week of the season, he was actually the most targeted rookie wide receiver in the NFL. Obviously, Goliday came back. He kind of took the back seat. But, one thing I have to, Matthew Stafford does throw him the ball. And even this past weekend had an awesome touchdown catch. I don't know if you guys saw that. I think that's a great dynasty. I think that's a great stash, Doc. Honestly. Good stuff. John Beast, you said you had one?
I do have one. It's an Indianapolis Colt. This is something that we've all forgotten. This is something you just go pick up right now, but Marlon Mack. Jonathan Taylor, he had a good week last week, but I think he's been, he's not done that much. And then we see Jordan Wilkins. Is that the Jordan Wilkins and Nyheim Hines? I don't know. I mean, they look like, reincarnations of Jim Brown and Frank Gore when they're running, but they can't. But, I know they got the draft capital on Jonathan Taylor. He's a big stud. He's this and that and the other. But Marlon Mack really produced. And he's just sitting there, and he's not. I think he's only 24 years old. I mean, he's going to be there next year. He's going to play. He's not going anywhere. And I really think that he's nothing. And there's another player. We were just talking the Dynasty Spotlight about Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence. Jacob Eason. Jacob. Okay, they've got all this money wrapped up in Phillip Rivers. Yeah. Jacob Eason was a stud. Yeah. And he's going to get a shot to play. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be next year, but he is going to get his shot.
He's got some arm talent.
Yeah. I actually almost put him on my list.
Nice.
Oh, you did? I just thought about him when we were sitting here talking, that this is a guy from
And so I actually really like the Marlon Mack take as well, kind of a different perspective. So I love Jonathan Taylor. I still think he's got a lot of hope. But with that, Marlon Mack, this was the last year of his contract. He's going to be free to sign anywhere. And anytime there's upcoming free agents, I think it's a great time to go pick him up. Since he was hurt, he's available in a lot of leagues. Almost worst case scenario, he stays in Indianapolis and gets some of his playing time back and can be an effective back there. But best case scenario, somewhere like Arizona or, somewhere. I just feel like, the floor is his to sign a contract and end up in a good spot. So I think Marlon Mack's a great pickup.
I think it's a great take, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's not in an Indianapolis uniform next year. Kind of a crowded running back field, as you pointed out. And Marlon Mack's proven that he can handle the running back position and put up good fantasy numbers. So if Marlon Mack's on your waiver wire in your Dynasty League, go pick him up right now. I couldn't agree more. Great take, John Bees. Dynasty Owl, you got a couple guys you want to talk about?
Sure, so I'll kind of start off with another running back, a little similar to Marlon Mack in the sense that the reason he's available is because he got put on the IR, missed the whole year, and that's Bears running back Tariq Cohen. I know Chicago's been a disaster all year until David Montgomery all of a sudden been putting up some monster numbers the last couple weeks, but with Tariq Cohen, obviously he's a third down back, but we saw that year he finished as the 12th PPR scoring running back like 3 years ago. I think Duke Johnson had one of those years too. So it's not super consistent when you're talking about the pass-catching running backs, but I mean, the upside's there. We see James White just being a consistent guy. I mean, because he catches passes. In these PPR leagues, he's got value. He's going to be around the league for a while, even if he's never a bell cow. So I think he's a guy you can go pick up for free and just somebody you can plug in your lineup. Like I know this past week Josh Jacobs missed a game, and I was throwing in James White because I knew at least he'd catch a few passes. It's these pass-catching running backs. They have their own kind of separate values. Just at least you can plug and play them. They'll catch a few passes and get you some points.
Now that's a really important thing to remember in fantasy football is that a touch is worth so much more than a rushing touch.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and he actually made a good point a few weeks ago about the running back by committee and that it's here to stay. I just think in the NFL today, these scat backs, these guys that can catch the ball, they're always going to have a role on a team. Even on some of these teams with a bell cow running back, I just think there's always a spot for a Nyheim Hines.
Absolutely.
A guy like you just spoke about. Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And just real quick, I kept thinking about that Colts. You were talking about Marlon Mack, a guy that I picked up in a Dynasty League just this last weekend was T.Y. Hilton, who actually won me a game this week. I just think a lot of people are kind of dropping off on some of these older guys. And I still think that, I think him and Phillip Rivers' chemistry, started off really slow. I still think that guy could be a contributor on a team for the next couple of years. I look at A.J. Green, too, another guy that's been dropped quite a bit. And I know with the injuries and a lot of doubts, but I look at A.J. Green as a guy that's going to be able to pick where he goes next year.
Yeah.
So A.J. Green's a guy I got my eye on, especially if he landed in a Green Bay or there's a lot of destinations where I think would be an upgrade for him. I think 1 year removed from the injury could help him out too. So I'll be looking for some of them veterans on the waiver wire too.
I like that.
I like that too.
For sure.
Yeah.
I can go with another one here, and I feel like my next two are both kind of on the same level, where I'm not exactly sure if they'll pay off, but if they do, it could be nice. The first one is one we've actually talked about a lot, and that's Jordan Love, a guy that's not really on a lot of rosters just because, he's not playing, and it doesn't look like he's going to be playing anytime soon. And as good as Aaron Rodgers has been this year, MVP level, I still think there's a little bit of trouble in paradise there. And at the end of the day, they did use a first-round pick on Jordan Love. The last thing you want to do is just keep waiting and waiting and waiting, and then when Love starts and is able to put up points, you're like, well, I could have had him 2 years ago for nothing. So I think it's something, if you've got that spot on your roster, it's worth clearing room, bringing in Jordan Love, because it seems like he's going to be playing sooner rather than later to me, just because of the investment they've made in him and the kind of relationship that Rodgers has with the Packers front office right now.
All right.
Yeah, you brought up a great point there, and obviously I don't think it'll be this scenario, but it was not far long ago. Patrick Mahomes was getting dropped on dynasty rosters because Alex Smith looked like he was going to hang around.
Right.
I think I own Mahomes in a couple leagues. One of the leagues, I literally picked him up for free like week 14 of his rookie year, and then finally Alex Smith goes out the door, and it's been nothing but sensational.
Exactly, and I think of like a guy in this draft, Justin Herbert, who didn't get drafted till super late because it seemed like, all right, well, Tyrod Taylor is going to start, and he's going to probably carry the load this season, and now Herbert's been the best rookie quarterback for fantasy without a shadow of a doubt. So sometimes you gotta project on these kinds of situations and hope that your guy gets in earlier than he's supposed to.
Yeah, great takes. And I have Justin Herbert on 3 of my dynasty teams. I didn't draft him once. We did a show, we were speaking about Tyrod Taylor and the injury. I just went and picked him up for the heck of it. Look, I couldn't be happier at the moment. You don't have to look far around the NFL to see that. These young quarterbacks that are getting drafted get their chance eventually. Even this past weekend, I think the news just came out today. Hurts is starting at quarterback.
Absolutely, yeah.
In Philly, Carson Wentz benched. One way or another, I do think Jordan Love's going to get a shot. Probably on your waiver wire. Go pick him up. That's actually a really good take.
Speaking of Jalen Hurts, that leads right into where I think there's lots of value in Philadelphia. I think Miles Sanders, obviously he's not going to be cheap, but his value is down, and you get him at a good price. But I give you 2 players. The first is Carson Wentz. I want you to know I'm a Carson Wentz truther. I believe Carson Wentz is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Maybe he's shot. Maybe he's shot just like Tim Couch got shot in Cleveland. What was Derek Carr's brother name?
David.
David Carr, like he got shot, maybe all the hits, or maybe it's just too much, maybe his body's broken down. Let's just suppose that it hasn't. The Eagles, you've never seen a team wrecked by injuries like the Eagles. You've never seen, I mean, all their offensive, I read some, Wentz and their center were the only two people on that offense that started every game. I mean, their top 3 wide receivers are out. The running back was out. Both their tight ends were out. Both tackles, both guards. And I'm not big on tackles and guards, I'll be honest, I'm not. But I remember watching on the Monday night game against Seattle, and they just had a little card of all the different Eagles offensive linemen that have played, and no one can go through that. But here, I'll give you just a couple of details on Carson Wentz. So if you go back to the beginning of the 2017 season, that's 58 NFL weeks. 58. It's a good chunk of time. Week 1 to 14 of 2017, I know it's 3 years ago, Carson Wentz, #1 quarterback in the NFL. Everybody's been on Carson Wentz this year. It's been terrible. Check it out. Weeks 4 to 8, that's 5 weeks. #1 quarterback, fantasy-wise, NFL, Carson Wentz. That's 19 weeks of the last 58. Good stretch of time there that Carson Wentz has been the #1 quarterback in fantasy football. Gets you to my second Eagle. It's easy to pull this one out. We all know it's going to be. It's going to be Travis Fulton. Another guy. He's really young. He's really down right now. Didn't have any touches last week, and since Jalen Rager's come back, he's not really done a whole lot. But it's just, hey, he wasn't good enough to play for the Lions. The Packers cut him. The Eagles picked him up. They cut him. Then they put him on the practice squad. Then they called him up. Week 4 to 8. It's a 5-week stretch. Who was #1 wide receiver in fantasy football?
Wow.
Travis Fulton. There's some talent there.
Yeah.
And he's not going away. I mean, yeah, they're wrecked, and maybe nothing happens.
Yeah.
I agree, and I like it a lot. And actually, I think the Wentz scenario is very intriguing from like a contract situation. I mean, obviously they just invested highly in Hurts as well, taking him in the second round, which seemed crazy. But they're not going to pay Carson Wentz all that money to some. I mean, they might for the rest of this year, but long term, they're not going to pay him all that money to be a backup. There's way too much dead cap to cut him, so like he's uncuttable. But there's plenty of teams out there who needs quarterbacks, and those teams will be willing to eat some of that dead cap to go make a trade for him. So I think this offseason, if Hurts plays well, this offseason we could see a mega Wentz trade, and then maybe that new situation's even, you talked about how bad Philly's been this year with all the turnover in the offensive line, the receivers. Maybe next year Wentz is playing somewhere, maybe it's somewhere like Denver. We talk about Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant. I mean, I think there's scenarios out there where Carson Wentz gets traded, and it's like possibly the best thing that could happen for his fantasy career.
Yeah, and when you were saying that, and maybe another point that I was thinking just on Carson Wentz was, you think of Tom Brady, you think of Russell Wilson. These guys, they didn't have great receivers, they were still great quarterbacks. But when Tom Brady had Randy Moss,
Yeah, they didn't lose.
when Russell Wilson has Derek Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, I mean, they produce, and I think that it's a quarterback's most important. And I think Fulgham just shows how talented Wentz is.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, especially with Wentz, because he's not a guy that's going to get you like rushing yards. I mean, so I'm just saying Wentz is so reliable on like he needs those weapons to produce. He's not going to give you 2 rushing touchdowns and 100 rushing yards, but I mean he does have a cannon on him. I think it's a great point. I think an upgrade with his weapons could mean the world to Wentz. I agree.
I like him in Denver too. That was a great pick.
I
like that.
And so was
Carolina.
I thought all the teams we said
Tampa,
Atlanta,
if Brady retires, throwing
There's plenty of options.
Yeah.
There's going to be so much quarterback turnover.
I think it's going to be a really interesting
It's gonna be
offseason
fun.
quarterback carousel.
Wentz he had his huge contract. They gave him his huge contract.
Yeah, it hasn't even kicked in yet.
Yeah, he's not.
Yeah, like they can't cut him.
He's
Like
not-
there'd be so much negative cap, and then they're not going to pay him to be the backup for Hurts for the long term.
Right.
So it's interesting.
Really interesting. I can't believe that they're taking snaps away from Fulgham and giving them to Alshon Jeffrey.
I
He's
know.
clearly
Yeah.
washed up. That makes no sense to
Completely
me.
agree there. So I kind of got another topic of players that you can kind of go out and get. And it's an unpopular one because people want to disassociate themselves from these guys who are big time busts. They went high in the real draft, they went high in your rookie draft, and then have done nothing but disappoint. But I look at John Ross as a guy who, was a top 10 pick in the draft to Cincinnati. Could never stay healthy, but he was big time producer in college and put up unreal numbers at the combine, blazing fast. They chose not to pick up his 5th-year option, so he's going to be a free agent this year. He's free to sign anywhere. We saw Green Bay had interest in Will Fuller. Maybe John Ross is the speedster they can grab cheap. I'm telling you, if he signs in Green Bay, he will go from being dropped in all formats to everybody's going to want a piece of John Ross.
Yeah.
And I think it was actually John Beast as well, who we were talking real early in the season, and we were talking about Corey Davis. And I always said Corey Davis and John Ross. I kind of linked them together as guys who went early in the draft for a good reason, started off their career as busts. Everyone's like ready to drop them, but we were picking up Corey Davis before the season started. Corey Davis put up 35 points last year. So maybe I was a little too early on John Ross, but I think now's the time. Grab John Ross. He's still a young player with talent, just turned 25 years old. His next contract could be the one that hits, and he could be a fantasy relevant player.
That's a really good point too. You get him now when he's free.
Yep.
Because if he does end up in Green Bay,
Yeah, you're gonna pay.
You're gonna pay.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
even if you don't like John Ross, pick him up now and then trade him once you don't have to like pick him up and try and hold him for life. If you don't believe in him, pick him up, let him sign somewhere. He'll get a little hype in March. Trade him.
Mm-hmm.
Get a 3rd or 2nd round rookie pick for nothing.
Yeah, I actually had one other guy I just wanted to ask you guys about, and I'm not sure about his off the field antics. So he may be done in the NFL forever. But I was just scrolling through the free agent list. What about Geis?
So what's funny, I was looking at him today. I saw his name and thought about it. To be completely honest, is he in jail right now? Like, is the legal...
I don't know.
I don't know.
I think it's like not even just, talking about suspension. Like, I think he might be...
Yeah, if
in
he's in
prison
jail,
right
I
now.
would recommend
Yeah.
picking him up.
But
he's just a guy. All the talent,
Yeah.
all the hype.
And we
at
see
one
guys
point.
get second chances all the time. He's still
Right.
23 years old. So, I think if he got a chance, will he? I don't know.
Yeah. I agree. If
Yeah.
if something happens where he gets a chance and he didn't do the things he's accused of and whatnot,
Right.
yeah, I think that would be someone I would definitely look at as well. I helped Justin Blackman for 5 years when he was suspended the whole time.
I
So
still feel like he could come back.
honestly, yeah.
Josh Gordon just got reinstated.
Yeah.
The moment I cut Justin Blackman was when I saw a picture of him at a bowling alley and he looked like he was 300 pounds. And I was like, well, all right, I guess he's never coming back.
Don't you love what players like that do? I hold on a job at best in one of my teams. I really loved him. He's a great
jeez.
player. I trade AP for him. I think to Jonathan.
And I actually have one thing I'm going to admit to our viewers. He brought it up, and it's been hurting ever since he said it. I was actually one of those guys, last cut of the year, 2 years ago in one of my Dynasty leagues, I kept Jason Witten and cut Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, man.
So I've got almost as an embarrassing a story, not quite as bad, but so when I said I was picking up Mahomes in leagues, I think I got him in 2. One of them I kept him. The other league I picked him up for free. That same offseason, before he was even named the starter, I flipped him for Hunter Henry. And looking back on that, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. But at the time I was like, oh, picked him up for free, traded for, at the time Hunter Henry was the young up and coming tight end.
Yeah.
Like the TJ Hawkinson of the world
Right,
now.
right.
I was thinking picked up Mahomes for free, flip him for Henry. I like that, and looking back on that.
Oh, yeah. That's not so
And what
good.
about you guys?
Oh yeah, I gave John Beast Devontae Adams for a 3rd round pick his rookie year because he just didn't even play. I was like, there's no point. And now look at him.
And he gave me AJ Brown.
Oh yeah, that's true. Well, I got Nick Chubb, best running back in the NFL, baby. Let's go Browns.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap up today's show. Dynasty stashes, waiver wire pickups. I really hope you liked the show. If you could, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Come be a part of the Masters family. Thank you so much for listening.